Welcome back to the Lexi J Wellness Podcast. I am your host, Lexi, and this is my co-host, my husband, Brett. We figured that in honor of it being, the first week of January, it would be appropriate and timely of us to talk about New Year's resolutions and goals, just because that is seasonally what everyone talks about right now. But as people that set a lot of goals and kind of manage them throughout the year, I think that if you're new to this topic, or if it's somewhere where you're looking for a little direction, I think that we can give our experience, our hits and misses, and just kind of talk through the importance of goals, what tactics we use, what kind of fields we set goals in, and also New Year's resolutions, because I think that there's a stigma when it comes to New Year's resolutions. It's kind of funny, and I was thinking about it this morning, because one of my pet peeves as a health and wellness professional is that it drives me absolutely crazy seeing people on my timeline saying, January is coming, the gyms are going to fill up, but they're only going to just wait for the first 2 weeks, because then everybody's going to clear out. All the New Year's resolutioners will burn out. And that the same people that are preaching that are the same people that are telling people to get up off their ass all year long, and they're being, derogatory towards people that aren't making those goals. And then when, seasonally the enthusiasm gets there and people decide to make a change, then they bitch about it, and it drives me crazy. So, although New Year's resolutions can seem a little bit cliche sometimes, if that clean slate is what you need to stand on, the doorstep of a brand new year, and that's your kind of slap in the face that, okay, time is passing and I need to make a change, or I need to pivot, I'm not happy with where I am. If that is the realization that you have to come to in order to make those changes, I think that the best time to make a change was yesterday. The second best time is today. So I am one that I'm going to support a New Year's resolution, whether it be fitness, whether it be finance, whether it be personal relationship, whatever it is. Maybe that's what you needed to make a change. So I'm a proponent of New Year's resolutions, just because in a perfect world, yes, you would have started months ago, but it's not a perfect world, and we're working with real people that are making real life changes. So I think that if January 1 is what it takes, then let's add to that momentum and encourage them. At the very least, leave them alone. I absolutely cannot stand the derogatory comments on New Year's resolutions. It pisses me off beyond belief. So tell me your thoughts on New Year's resolutions.
Well, you rounded that out well, and I applaud you for not having a negative comment about New Year's resolutions, because I tend to think a little bit negatively about them. But that's just simply because I think that because statistics show that it's a startling number. It's like 10% or something like that of people actually stick to their New Year's resolutions that they set.
I want to put a stopper in that, just because I just thought about it as you said that. I'm curious though, because it's a similar mentality, I think, to the point guard has the most turnovers because they handle the ball the most. There are inevitably going to be more people falling off a habit or a goal because they're more set in that. Do you think that has anything to do with it? I just thought about that as you were saying it.
Meaning because they actually set something, that they said, okay, I'm going to do this, and because they said they're going to do it, there's actually a likelihood of whether or not they will or will not.
Yeah, I hear statistics all the time about you're going to fall off by April, but I don't know anything about what the statistics are like about people that set goals in October, or people that set goals in, August.
Yeah, that's true. There's something to be said for the fact that if there's no goal set, then there's nothing to measure. Mm-hmm. So you can't say that somebody didn't achieve something if they didn't say that they were going to achieve something. So I guess there's that angle of it. If that's what I don't know. You can play devil's advocate, all day long with it. But I guess from my perspective, and maybe you're somebody who's never set a New Year's resolution. Maybe you're somebody who hasn't been a goal setter, or a big achiever, so to speak. But I think that in my mind, I associate New Year's resolutions with the type of person who does it annually, and
it's the same one.
Right. It's just it's a perpetual thing. It's just a hamster wheel effect. They say the same thing every year, that they're going to do something, and they just never do. It's just like the time of the year where you say, okay, well, I'm going to make all these wild changes, and nothing ever comes to fruition. So I think in my mind, that's what I associate with the coin, phrase New Year's resolution. Whereas I think it's a lot better to approach it as, a goal or an actionable task, or, if you want to call it a kill list, like the guy we were listening to yesterday, or Andy Frisella's power list. Like, however you want to approach it, I think it's just much more realistic to stop calling it this New Year's resolution just for the sake of saying, okay, well, whenever it comes up in conversation, somebody asks me what my New Year's resolution is going to be, then I have something to say. Like, if you don't have something that you're planning on doing, if you're not setting a goal, then don't say you're going to do anything at all. Like, if you're going to do it. And
I agree to the point where that, if you're going to talk about it, we're gonna put things into action. We are going to have, productive steps towards achieving that. That is another thing. Just people come to me a lot and they're saying, I have these big goals, and we could talk about it, but the conversation's not going to stop there. There needs to be actionable steps taken moving forward, or else, how many times can someone come to you with the exact same resolution year after year after year? If you're essentially just setting the same resolution and living the same life or the same year continuously. But if you are stacking, okay, maybe your resolution this year was maybe you had a big lifestyle change that needs to be happening. And you said your resolution by the end of the year is to lose 75 pounds. Maybe that's appropriate for you. And then the next year, your resolution is maybe to run a 10K because that's something that you've never done before. I think that those types of things and coining them as goals rather than resolutions, I think sits a little bit better with me also. So I would agree with you there. Do you think that, and we'll just call them goals from now on, these goals are better, speaking in terms of setting them at the beginning of the year, do you think that they're more productive to say that you're going to implement a new habit, or that you're going to take away an unproductive habit or a negative habit? So rather than, would it be more productive for someone to say that they are going to, start doing this?
Do something by addition rather than subtraction, or vice versa?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it probably depends on what it is. Like, if you're going to quit smoking and it's a huge obstacle in your mind that, I can't stop smoking, it's okay. Well, maybe you eliminate, if you smoke 5 cigarettes a day, you eliminate 2 cigarettes per day. And then, that's an actionable, reasonable expectation that you can set going into each and every day. And then you can stair step that.
Yeah, make it quantifiable. And that's something that I have used a lot with clients that needed to make large lifestyle changes. I've said this before, but someone has come to me and they genuinely needed to lose 180 pounds roughly to get to a healthy weight. Like, it was one of those things where it's not an aesthetic goal. It is a life or death situation where if we don't make a change soon, then you're going to have to, it's already acting in reaction, but you're going to need to make a change, or else things are going to get really, really serious really fast. And we kind of just took a look at what the lifestyle was like right here. And obviously in a perfect world, and I say this all the time, but like in a perfect world, everyone would be resistance training multiple times a day, and we're speaking in terms of health. But everyone would be eating the appropriate number of calories for their height, their weight, their activity level. They would be consuming appropriate protein. They'd getting lots of water and getting lots of rest. But we're not dealing with the ideal situation, and sometimes when you are so neck deep in these negative habits, that for us we started with, rather than drinking, he was probably drinking about a liter of full sugar soda, just regular soda, which that really doesn't do you any good. So is it the perfect choice for him to be doing my water's about to fall, excuse me, for him to be doing diet soda rather than implementing water? That would be an addition we started with. But first we said, okay, we're just going to take away the full sugar soda. We're going to start with diet soda, and then slowly increase that water intake, because it feels inconceivable when you're in that deep of negative habits, that completely flipping it and turning a 180, it doesn't feel realistic whatsoever. You can see other people doing it and it feels like an anomaly, like you're witnessing something that's there's not in the cards for you, which I think that is another thing that we can talk about just forming that belief in having big goals and achieving big goals. And I think that something that we've mentioned a lot, just you and I talking, is the difference between having standards and having goals. Because, I mean, you can go on a little bit into that, just the difference in daily standards versus your daily goals.
Yeah. Well, in the beginning, you may not really have standards. So, really, it's about, in my opinion, when you're starting out, you set some goals. So you set your daily tasks, and once you solidify those daily tasks into just becoming your normal regimen, then you have your standards put in place. And you can continue to optimize your day-to-day by just continuing to implement new goals, big or small, into just the norm. So standards just continually progress, because you don't just set a goal, achieve it, and then not push to the next thing, because that's how you become complacent. That's how you become stagnant, and you're just going to stay where you are. So I think that's the difference to me whenever it comes to standards and goals. But you have to begin somewhere to really set that foundation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, your goals should not be something that you can achieve passively. If you're hitting your step goal every single day without intention, then that's a standard you're setting. If you're hitting your monthly savings that you've set for yourself, and it's no longer something where you need to be cognizant of it, or you're no longer being intentional about it, that's awesome. That means you've kind of leveled up, that you've graduated from that being a goal of yours to now that is the standard, and that requires you to level up to another degree and to push and to be more intentional with that. Because in order to progress, you have to continue making those actionable steps that are going to move you a little bit further. And it's not a night and day switch, but like you had said, like you kind of set the baseline, and then as you start achieving those with less additional action, I guess, it's taking you less effort out of your daily routine, that now you're falling onto standards, which that's great. That's exciting. That means that you have implemented these daily habits, and they've provided you enough of the groundwork where you're falling onto your standards, and it's no longer something that you have to set into your day, that you can now put that additional effort and that additional intention that you were putting towards those to newer heights, and then to continue seeing that progress.
Yeah, and there's big and small goals. Whenever it comes to this conversation of what daily standards, daily tasks, you break things down, into small chunks, regardless of how big the goal is. So if the goal is, okay, well, I want to drink a gallon of water every day, then okay, well, how many ounces of water do I need to have drank by noon? How many ounces of water do I need to have drank by dinner? But if your goal is to buy a house, then you have to break it down into smaller things. So if I want to buy a house, then okay, well, what does that mean? That means that I need to be able to have this much money for a down payment, and this means that the mortgage payment is going to be this. So we need to be able to save this much money for the down payment. So that means I need to set up a savings plan. I'm going to save X number of dollars over whatever time span, whatever your goal is to have a house by. And then, okay, well, how much money do we make on a monthly basis? So we need to make sure that we can afford to keep the home once we've saved up enough money to buy a home. So, I mean, it's just breaking things down into much smaller, realistic things, so it's not just such a huge pill to swallow by saying, okay, well, I want to do this big, inconceivable thing, and it's okay, well, I want to do this thing, and how are we going to get there? What are the small steps, daily tasks, daily actionable things that you can do in order to achieve that inconceivable thing?
I'm so glad you brought it into terms of finance, because this is also something that I'm really excited to have you on the podcast, just because that is your wheelhouse that you've really helped me round out personally, business-wise, just because I am not historically very financially savvy. But that's something that I think that everyone can add or get value from. And thinking in terms of like thinking work backwards, like you had mentioned, saying if your goal is to own a house, then you first need to identify a down payment, and then you can break that into smaller chunks, and just breaking your big goals into manageable bites. Like how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And it feels so much more manageable. It also creates momentum along the way, because then you're having those little milestones, those little victories that you can celebrate, and you get a little bit of momentum. You're like, okay, I'm building up traction, I'm doing this. Because if you were just, throwing a dart and then working towards that goal that's miles and miles away, in my head, all I can think about is the distance between here and there. And it is just, it can be so deceiving or like dismissive of the work that you're putting in, because those little steps at the beginning are going to be the exact same steps that you're going to continue building upon throughout the entire thing. But it's going to be hard to see that progress at the beginning, and you need to have those small manageable bites to kind of keep you going, keep you engaged before you start seeing that real traction, before you start seeing the money building up in your savings account, before you start seeing your clothes fit different and your progress photos look different, and you're noticing your business is getting more traction, things like that. Like, you have to put those plans in place, and progress by process is one of our core values that we talk about all the time. And the basics are the basics for a reason. So the things that you put in place are going to serve you now, and they'll serve you a year from now, but you have to understand how to break those down and set those manageable goals along the way, or else you're going to get so distraught because you're not picking up any traction or any noticeable traction at all. But just looking at that step ahead rather than the entire staircase, it really does feel like, okay, I'm achieving something. I'm developing the skills that are going to get me there, and it feels like you're moving yourself forward. Because at the beginning, it's not going to feel that way. It's going to feel like you're spinning your wheels, and it can be really frustrating. But rather than creating that, or just like I had mentioned, focusing on the distance between where you are and your, quote unquote finish line, think about, expanding that difference between where you are and where you started, creating separation there, because then that's exciting. And then every step you take forward, that is noticeable progress. That is just like putting a separator between you and where you started, and just moving you forward, rather than thinking about all that's left to come, all that you have left to do, everything that you're not yet.
Yeah. It's breaking it down into realistic, small, achievable goals, and keeping the bigger picture in mind, that realizing that it's not going to happen overnight. It's something that you're working towards, and as long as you continue to chip away, then you'll eventually get there.
Yeah. One last thing I wanted to touch on, because we started out with January and New Year's resolutions and setting goals. Along a lot of what comes with setting goals is that people around you are not always going to be the most supportive, and just having people in your corner can be so crucial, so helpful in helping you in those early stages, especially when you don't see anything. But that's not always the case, and the more people that I interact with and the more people that I work with, it is evident that some people just don't have any support in their life. They don't have people that believe in them, and when you don't have people that believe in you, it's really hard to believe in yourself. So I think that I encourage everyone to do this, whether it be like a schedule, you do this every month or every so often, but I'm such a big believer in this. You truly do become the average of the 5 people that you most interact with, and they rub off on you, you rub off on them. So be selective about the content that you consume. You don't owe anyone anything. You don't owe anyone a follow on Instagram or a friendship on Facebook. If the people that you are consuming content from day in and day out are constantly negative, and they're preaching self-limiting beliefs, and that's rubbing off on you, you don't owe them a thing.
Yeah, for sure. You're a product of who you spend a lot of your time around, and it's evident in the way that people progress or regress or just stay exactly the same, because you hear it all the time, because it's true that there's so many people that you may think that you're around all the time, that are pulling for you, that want you to succeed, and they'll say the right things at the right time. But if you ever stick your neck out and you actually try to go do something different out of the norm, And then all of a sudden it's, well, what are you doing, man? Why are you doing that? Why are you wasting your time doing that? Why are you spending all your time doing that? You could be hanging out with us, that sort of thing. It's because it makes those people uncomfortable, because it points the finger back at them and it shows them what they're not doing. And it makes them uncomfortable, because then it makes them insecure in the fact that they realize they could be doing more, but they're not. And they would rather be able to project their insecurities onto you and make you feel bad about yourself and try to keep you where they are at as well, than watch you show them the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Insecurity is incredibly loud and confidence is quiet. And the people around you that are saying those negative things and encouraging you to quit on these goals that you have, those are not friends. They are not people that are wanting the best for you. They're wanting to keep you small in order to keep them comfortable, because they don't want to get uncomfortable, to be in a better position. They don't want to better their lives. And it's just a stark contrast when someone starts to put those pieces in place. And you'll notice this. I read once, I think it's called the tall poppy syndrome. And I can't even remember, but somewhere when they grow poppy fields, or in poppy fields, when a poppy grows significantly taller than the rest, that they will kind of take a blade and chop them off just so they're the exact same height. And when you start to create separation from a pack and you start to put that distinction where you want better for yourself, you put those actions in place, people are going to try to cut you down, because now you're very obviously sticking out from the crowd. And there is a lot of loneliness. There's a lot of doubt in those moments, because it's the exact same time when you're not necessarily seeing all the progress, you're not necessarily seeing the wins that you're accumulating yet, and at the same time no one's rooting for you, because you've also not achieved anything. So it's really hard to believe in yourself and to continue putting those actions in place when you haven't seen the fruits of your labor yet. But it's important to continue planting those seeds, because the day you plant the seed is not the same day you eat the fruit. And I just wanted to reiterate, because we've experienced that ourselves, just in making those changes. People are going to get uncomfortable with that, because it points the finger, like Brett had said, it points the finger back at them in what I'm not doing, that I'm staying in that same position. And it's okay to outgrow friends. Like I had said, you don't owe anyone anything.
Yeah, and family is no exception to that rule. It's not just friends.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which is a hard reality to swallow, but a lot of times that can be, it can be portrayed as something where somebody cares about you so much they don't want you to fail, or they don't want you to set yourself up for some sort of, financial disaster or emotional disaster. And really what it does is they're really just holding you back. And whether or not they realize it, I don't know. I think it probably depends on the situation. But yeah, it's not just friends, it can be family as well.
I would agree. And I'll leave you on this note, because one thing that people often say when you're making these goals, that you get negative comments, and never have I ever gotten a negative comment that works from someone that works harder or does better. It's all coming from that insecurity. Remember that insecurity is incredibly loud, confidence is quiet. So until next time, I hope you guys have a great week. Get going on your goals. I'm excited for you.
Let's go 2023.